Good day, everyone. I'm Constantino Nicole D from ED31B, and I'm going to talk about the part 1 of the critical interpretation. Let's get on to the video. What you can see on my report is the meaning of critical interpretation and also the steps in writing a critical interpretation or analysis of a poem. The purpose for writing a critic is to evaluate somebody's work, may it be a book, an essay, a movie, a painting, poem, etc. In order to increase the reader's understanding of it, a critical interpretation or analysis is subjective writing because it expresses the writer's opinion or evaluation of a text. A critical interpretation or analysis means to break down and study the parts. Writing a critical paper requires two steps: critical reading and critical writing. In knowing how to write a critical interpretation or analysis of a poem, you can enable the readers of your critical analysis to understand the language and symbols that the author of the poem uses better. A critical interpretation or analysis is a form of subjective writing in which the writer expresses his or her evaluation or opinion of a text. A poem, on the other hand, is a form of writing that takes the nature of a song and a speech, and it is almost rhythmical. In most cases, and usually metaphorical, exhibiting different formal elements which include as stanzaic structure, rhyme, and meter. A critical analysis of a poem therefore should break down a poem and study its part to give the evaluation or opinion of the entire piece. Now let's move on to the steps in writing a critical interpretation or analysis of a poem. While writing poems, authors are very deliberate with their choice of words as well as the format they use to convey meaning. Most poets hope that their poems will be read aloud. This is why they strive to maintain high lyrical quality. Others strive to maintain interesting rhythms in punctuating the elements of their poems. As you write a critical analysis of a poem, depict in an intimate appreciation of it. Step 1. Read the poem. To critique a poem, you should read it severally to understand what the speaker is saying or what the main message of the poem is. If there are unusual or difficult words, find their meaning. In most cases, the title will give you the summary or general meaning of the main idea or thought that is being presented. Step 2. Know who the speaker is. The speaker in a poem can be an elderly person, a child, a shepherd, a student, a swordsman, a sailor, a milkmaid, an animal, or an object such as a chair, a place, or a mountain. Speakers in poems speak differently. Step 3. Identify the main theme of the poem. Start your critical analysis by identifying the major or specific theme in the poem that gives it a larger meaning. To identify this theme, you need to consider or study the entire poem, including its title. Maybe the poem that you are analyzing is about losing innocence, growing old, or importance of preserving the environment. The overarching or major theme of a poem can come out clearly or it can be hidden in its presentation and words. Step 4. Establish the context. The context gives the location and time of a poem. This is usually what prompts the creation of a poem. A poem can be prompted by a political event which has great importance in the history of the country. Step 5. Identify intertextuality. This implies that a poem looks back to another poem. This is also called reference. If a poem has this aspect, included in your analysis and show how it enhances the message or its delivery. Step 6. Identify the genre of the poem. Genre is simply the category. There are characteristics and rules of each genre. For instance, a poem that comprises a long narrative dealing with demigods or divine figures and describing incredible journeys, or terrible wars that determine humanity, fate, is called an epic poem. A sonnet, on the other hand, is a short poem with 14 lines in which intimate emotions are expressed. Other poems genres include mock epic lyric, ballad, parody, ode, amongst others. Step 7. Create a checklist for your critical analysis. You should come up with a checklist that will guide you as you review or analyze the poem. Checklists will enable you to analyze or dissect the poem into separate pieces in order to understand it as a complete piece better. For instance, you can come up with a checklist that includes the title, genre, viewpoint, setting, meter, rhyme scheme, context, or conflict. Make the elements in your checklist your guide while writing the critical analysis of the poem. Step 8. Review the poem's plot. While reviewing the plot, answer the following questions after reading the poem. What is going on the poem? Who is affected by what's going on? Your answers to these questions will enable you to understand what exactly the poem is describing. This will enable you to apply the meaning of the poem in the analysis. Step 9. Analyze the poem's rhyme scheme. Note that not every poem has a rhyme. Nevertheless, most poems are written with the hope that they will be read aloud, and therefore they have a rhyme scheme. Perhaps this is one of the most important steps of a guide on how to write a critical analysis of a poem, because you must read and analyze the poem carefully to notice its rhyme scheme. Before you conclude that the poem under analysis does not have a rhyme scheme, read it aloud with a friend or alone. Listen to its sound instead of simply looking at its words. This will enable you to identify its rhyme scheme and analyze it. Step 10. Analyze the format. A poem can be free form. This means it does not have an identifiable pattern. It can also have a unique writing scheme. The format of a poem usually a deliberate choice of style or act by a writer. Describe the format chosen by the author in your critical analysis and what it could mean, as well as how it hinders or helps in communicating the message. Step 11. Analyze the use of figurative language. Poetry uses a wide range of literary devices, which include personification, metaphor, simile, metonymy, and irony. Apart from constituting the body, these devices also demonstrate the control of language by the author. Therefore, it is highly important that you evaluate and analyze the use of figurative language in the poem. Step 12. Create a thesis statement. On the basis of your comprehension of the meaning of the poem, create the thesis statement for your critical analysis. Note that while writing any academic piece, you should have a strong, clear thesis statement. Step 13. Gather evidence from the poem to support the controlling idea or thesis statement. In the body of your critical analysis, cite actual lines of the poem to support your thesis. This will make your critical analysis credible and strong. Readers will get clues of where your thesis statement came from, because it will have adequate supporting evidence from the poem. Last but not the least, step 14. Write the analysis. At this step, you already know how to write a critical analysis of a poem, and you have all the information required to write a critical analysis of a poem. Use your checklist to write your critical analysis. Your critical analysis should include the following, and the introduction should include background information, title of the poem under analysis, authors or author of a poem, publication information, purpose or topic statement. Under this, number 1 is thesis statement that indicates your reaction to the poem. Number 2 under it is the description or summary of the poem. Provide a summary or a brief description of the poem that you're analyzing critically. Evaluation and interpretation of the poem. Use your checklist to analyze or evaluate or discuss different aspects of the poem as described in the steps of this guide. Lastly is the conclusion. Draw conclusions from your analysis. Tell readers what was the goal or the theme of the poem that you were analyzing. Tools that were used in conveying the main idea or the theme of the poem, how they were used, and whether they were effective. The critical evaluation of ideas, arguments, and points of view is important for the development of the student's autonomous thinking. Learning how to analyze, critically evaluate arguments thus helps them to develop a sound framework to test their own arguments and advance to their own points of view. And again, I'm Nicole Constantino from ED31B, and that was the part 1 of the critical interpretation. Please also watch the part 2 of the critical interpretation presented by Miss Mia Paz. That will be all. Thank you.